Tanya for the 27th of Tammuz is in Igeres HaTshuva, Perek Yud, chapter 10. It's on page 198. The number at the bottom of the page is 380. The Alter Rebbe is describing the difference between Tshuva Tato and Tshuva Ilah. That Tshuva Tato means the regret and the feeling of pity for the neshama, and also the recognition of the damage caused by the sin. And then Tshuva Ilah, the higher level Tshuva, is serving God and studying Torah out of love and fear. Only this happens in one of two ways. Tshuva Ilah comes in one of two ways. Either milmailo lamata, from above downwards, or milmata lamailo, from below upwards. In the study of Torah, it is basically drawing down godliness, which is the desire to serve God with love and fear, but it's not actually the love and fear itself, whereas when it's coming from below, from the person himself, then it is closer and more real to the person, and this happens not so much in learning as it happens in davening. And now we'll continue on page 198. The line begins with Umi'acha, about 8 lines from the top. And since this davening is on the level of Tshuva Ilah, that's why it has to be prefaced. You have to introduce it with the lower level Tshuva, with Tshuva Tato. And what is this Tshuva Tato that precedes davening? So the Gemara, the sages say in the Mishnah, that a person begins to daven, prepares to daven with a heaviness of the head, a seriousness. Pirish Rashi, and Rashi explains what is this keved reish, what is this seriousness. Hachno'o, it means a feeling of lowliness, v'hi bechinas tshuva tato, which is an expression of the lower level tshuva, le'ere rachamim kenal, to arouse compassion for the neshama and for the source of the neshama, and that is a feeling of lowliness, a feeling of humility, as explained earlier. And as the Gemara bases its statement on a verse in Torah, how do we know that you're supposed to daven with a seriousness and with humility? Because it says V'hi moras nefesh, concerning the tefillah of Chana, it says that she was bitter of soul. And from there we learn about davening, that the davening should be said silently and so on. And so we see that the mood with which to daven is one of seriousness and of humility. So that is the Tshuva Tato that precedes and introduces the Tshuva Ilah. However, in the Beraisa, there in the same place where the Mishnah is, Tanu Rabbanon, we learn that that the proper mood and the proper introduction to davening should be joy. And as we said earlier, simcha comes from bina. Eim habonim smecha. Eim habonim is bina, because chachma and bina are the mother and the father and the mother. So bina is the mother. So the eim habonim, the mother of the emotions, the children, is bina, and eim habonim is smecha. Simcha comes from bina, and bina is the level of tshuva ilah, of the higher level tshuva. So the statement that we should daven with a heaviness of heart, with a humbleness, that is tshuva tato, and the statement that we should daven b'simcha, that's tshuva ilah. So we have to experience both. But in this orphaned generation, in which not everybody is capable of shifting and switching from one emotion to the other, from extreme humility to joy. And the reason he says the orphan generation is that an orphan means the loss of the father and mother. And the father and mother is the Chachma and the Bina. since in our generation our emotions are not as closely connected and permeated by our intelligence, by our Chachma and Bina, so the emotions of our generation are like orphaned, separated from their parents, from their origins, which is Chachma and Bina. So if the emotions were based in wisdom, in Chachma and Bina, then just as Seichel in general, intellect in general, is objective and can see both sides of a story, both sides of an argument, therefore it would be easy for the person to go from a feeling of humility when that's necessary to a feeling of joy when that becomes appropriate and necessary. But when the emotions are not permeated or influenced by the intelligence, then the emotions are much more rigid, and it's hard for the person to shift from one emotion to another. And that's why he says in this orphaned generation, when our emotions are not connected to intellect, it is difficult to go in a moment, like until the moment of Shemona Esrei. You have to feel humble. The moment of Shemona Esrei has to be simcha. So it's difficult. Azai eitza hayu'utza. So then the advisable way of going about the davening is lahagdim b'chinas tshuva tato b'tikun chatzeis kanal, to experience the tshuva tato not in the davening but rather in the tikun chatzeis, in the midnight prayer as mentioned before. There the tshuva tato is more appropriate because it is a time of mourning and a time of seriousness, whereas in the davening should be with joy. And whoever can't manage every night to experience this tshuva tato, al kol ponim le'yifches mipam echad b'shavua lifnei yom haShabbos k'neidah li'yedin. He should do it at least once a week before Shabbos, as is known to those who study Kabbalah. And that is, Shabbos hi bechinas tshuva ilah. That Shabbos itself is also the level of tshuva ilah, a higher level tshuva. And Shabbos, the letters of the word Shabbos, are the same ACAs as the word Toshev Enosh. Toshev, to return. Ki b'Shabbos hi aliyas ha'elam eis l'mekedam. Because Shabbos is a time when the world is raised up towards its source. It is closer to its source. And that is the character, the quality of Tshuva Ilah. Ubefrat Tfilas HaShabbos V'dal. And particularly the davening of Shabbos is certainly an element of Tshuva Ilah, and it is sufficient for those who understand. So if a person can't experience this Tshuva Tato every night in Tikkun Chatzeis, then he should do it at least once a week on Erev Shabbos, because Shabbos is itself Tshuva Ilah, and the Tshuva Tato should precede the Tshuva Ilah. And therefore the Tshuva Tato should be done on Thursday night. With this we'll understand what it says, return to me for I have redeemed you. What does it mean, because I have redeemed you? After I've erased like a cloud your sins, the sins that were like a cloud, which means the removal of the unholiness, after I've redeemed you from the unholiness, from the unholy garments that encrust the soul, as we learned earlier. This was removed when the person aroused for himself compassion from above, by arousing compassion for his neshama, which is tshuva tato. Then shuva elai, then you can return to me b'tshuva ilah, with the higher level tshuva. In the Hayom Yom, actually going back to yesterday, the Hayom Yom for the 26th of Tammuz, the Rebbe writes that in learning, a person is devoted to a thing, to a subject, that which he wants to understand, and he does understand. In the davening, the person is devoted to that which is above